Hey, good morning everybody. Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm doing a video about how I negotiated for my price point for my Jeep Gladiator, and I'm going to talk about what I did on my first Jeep and my second Jeep and what worked for me. So here are 5 things that I did prepping for and in the negotiation phase of buying my Jeep Gladiator. Know your Jeep and the specific specs and desires that you're going to have for the uses that you're going to be using that Gladiator for. There's a lot of differences between a Sport S and a Rubicon, so knowing which specific trim level is going to be right for you is key up front. The second thing is set your financial goal / limit on what you're wanting to spend. And I would include in that is knowing what you want to finance versus what you want to pay out of pocket. That will be key when you get to the negotiation phase. The third step is dial in your Jeep and the specs that you're looking for into some sort of car search engine. I use a particular one that's not sponsored, and I found great success with the services that they provide, which we'll get into later in the video. The fourth thing is the obvious part, the actual negotiation itself and how I do it and what I found successful. The fifth step and the last step in this is go do a test drive. You might see the Jeep online, you might negotiate for it over a phone call, but having that test drive underneath your belt is critical to making sure that that Jeep drives and is in the condition you want it to when you do that handshake at the dealer. So starting out with step 1, the key thing here is knowing what you specifically are going to want that Jeep to be used for. If it's going to be your daily driver, look at the different trims, creature comforts, heated seats, winter packages, what types of tires are going to come on at standard from when you buy it from the factory or if you're buying it used. All those things are going to be considerations that you want to have when you're looking at what type of Jeep you want and what use it is going to be for you. For me specifically, I was looking at a Jeep that could be capable off-road. The stock Jeep would be perfectly fine, but I also knew that with this channel and with my adventures, I wanted to grow my Jeep into a more capable off-road rig. So the Sport S worked perfectly fine, but then when I started looking into all the different gear ratios and adding bigger tires and what the 6-speed had versus the automatic in terms of upgrades that I needed to do, all those things really didn't match. So real quick, if you're looking at a daily driver, pretty much all the Jeeps will do just fine. But I will say the MT tires that come with the Willys and some Sport S packages, but primarily the Willys version, are absolutely terrible for daily driving. They're noisy, they clunk on the road, and they just don't have a smooth feel to them. When I specifically upgraded to the current Jeep I have and had the Nitto grapplers put on it, they were a game changer. And so that is one thing I would say is keep in mind if you're doing any daily driving, you want to stay away from those Firestone MTs. If you don't mind them and want to put an upgrade in, that's also totally fine, but just keep that in mind. If you're just using it primarily as a daily driver and you're not looking at doing anything serious from an off-roading standpoint and you're looking for just good snow, the Sport S version will do just fine. If you're looking at doing anything more capable in the off-roading realm, or if you want to build an off-road capable vehicle over time, I highly recommend you jump straight into looking at the Mojave and or Rubicon. The Rubicon is the top of the line with all the bells and whistles from an off-roading feature standpoint. The Mojave is a close second, especially if you're looking at doing any sort of bajaing or crossing sand and those types of terrains versus rock crawling. In the Jeep community, the Rubicon's known as the rock crawler and the Mojave's known as the sand dune bajaer. That will be exactly what they do for you. Now, if you want to make those rigs into something more off-road capable, either of those platforms would be fantastic starts because they come standard with the rear locker. The Mojave does, but what you get with the Rubicon and not so much with the Mojave is the front locker and the front sway arm disconnect, which the Mojave typically does not come with. And then the last thing I will say regarding knowing what Jeep you want is really ask yourself what you want to do with your specific Jeep in 5 years. The thing that I fell into was I thought that the Sport S would be perfectly fine. The Willys version would be perfectly fine for me when I bought it, and it was. But when I started doing the math after I purchased it and I had a manual, I realized that the math to add all of these extra features to get bigger tires, to make it a little bit more off-road capable on certain trails that I've been on, it would have been cheaper to have just bought the Rubicon or Mojave at the better price point because it would have been cheaper for me to just buy it outright than to do all the upgrades myself. Again, that's up to each individual person and kind of what they want to do with their Jeep. But keep that in mind when you're looking at specific Jeep models and trims based off of what you want to do in the future. Right now, it may be perfect, but you might realize in 2 to 3 years after doing some wheeling, you might wish you had specific features that came from factory and the math doesn't make sense to go do them yourself. It makes more sense to just buy the model with those features already equipped from factory. All right, so this takes us to our second point, which is knowing your financial limit / goal. For me specifically, I had a set price point that I did not want to pay over. Typically, that's something that you will set based off of your goals, your finances, how much you want to pay in loan versus APR, things like that. For me, I specifically did not want to pay over a certain amount of dollars. Once I figured out what Jeeps and the trim features that I wanted and how they fit into that price point, I was able to look at how much I needed to save so that I knew how much I wanted to take out on my loan. And that is the next big thing when looking at the second point, which is knowing your financial limit / goal, is how much are you wanting to finance versus how much are you going to pay outright. For me specifically, I had a set goal of what I wanted to pay down and what I wanted to take out in a loan. I personally do not want to pay any interest. I want to pay as little as possible. And so when I looked at my price point with the Jeep, I mirrored that with my down payment that I had saved. So that way my overall interest that I paid the bank during the course of my loan was as small as possible. And so knowing your financial limits, what your goals are critical to buying the Jeep. Because if your financial goal is to stay under $20,000, then buying a new Rubicon is likely going to be impossible. But if you're going to be real and look at the finances for adding all those upgrades and you're able to push that financial limit a little bit better because it makes sense in the long run, then you can start being a little bit more serious about your goal. And that's what I did the second time I bought my Jeep, was looking at the differences in the pay that I would have to do on my own upgrades versus just buying the next trim level up. When you're looking at these financial goals and limits, the key thing that I would recommend is knowing an out-the-door price, an OTD. There's a lot of car channels that will talk about this, but knowing what the OTD is crucial for the negotiation phase. So real quick, an OTD, if you're not familiar, is when you go to a dealer and the sticker price says $50,000, but then when you go to actually walk out the door, which is why it's called the OTD, they then tack on $5,000 because they have a dealership fee or a windshield wiper fluid fee, or we gave you free mats and a warranty fee. That all needs to be included in your negotiation so that when you walk out of that dealer and you say, hey, I want to pay $50,000 for my Jeep, that there's not $1 over $50,000 because that's what you negotiated for. So set your out the door price and use calculators online to help you with that. But make sure that that is what is in your financial limit or goal. So when you go to the dealer, you're not surprised with an extra $3,000 fee on top of that $50,000 that you were actually budgeted for. Also, when you're doing your numbers, it's good to know if you're having a vehicle that you're going to trade in, what the value of that vehicle is. Typically, a Kelley Blue Book valuation is going to give you a decent idea of what the dealer will quote you. And so that's something that I always have in my pocket, knowing I'm going into the dealership. We're going to talk a little bit about the negotiation phase, how you can use your trade-in value for getting you a little bit more back on your total loan or getting you back in your comfort zone if need be. But just knowing what your vehicle is worth based off of Kelley Blue Book, or even taking it to another dealer to get them valuating it, would be good before you go into the dealer to negotiate for the Jeep you want. So have that trade-in value in mind, in pocket, so that you know exactly what you could get if you went somewhere else, and you know if you're being lowballed by a dealer that you're negotiating with. And the biggest thing that I already kind of hit on was knowing your APR. If you do not want to pay a ton of interest and you want to save as much as possible on that loan when you're paying a loan, dial in that APR and know what term you are comfortable with paying back on that loan so that you can minimize the amount of interest you pay overall. If that APR is not close or the numbers don't add up for what your financial goals are, do not do it, in my opinion. It's not worth it. You should stick to your goal. And that takes me to the last point with this, is know what total interest / bottom line you're comfortable with. If it's outside of those parameters, don't do it. Stick to your goals, stick to your financial situation, save for another couple months or another year, wait till the next model year comes out, but do not compromise your financial goals. That is crucial to you because you're going to go in and buy a Jeep. The sales folks are going to do all these things to make you feel comfortable and great, and this is the one-time deal. But the reality is those deals come up frequently, and you can always wait one more year to get the vehicle that you want. So don't fall for that. And the key thing with not falling for those gimmicks is knowing your financial goal and your limit. So know what you want to spend, know what your total interest loss is going to be, know what you want to finance, and know what you're able to put down based off of what the dealer might provide you back when you get to that negotiation phase. All right, so this moves us into the third category, and by all means is going to be probably the lengthier category that I talk about. This video is not sponsored by CarEdge.com by any means, but it is the website I used both times when I was looking for my midsize pickup truck that ended up leading me to a Jeep Gladiator that I bought. I'm specifically going to talk about CarEdge.com. You can use Car Gurus, you can use Auto Trader. There's all sorts of car search engines out there. I specifically like CarEdge, and when you pay their paid subscription, they give you a ton of details that will help you in that negotiation phase, which is what I'm going to talk about next after we talk about using a car search engine. So today I'm going to pull up CarEdge.com, and I'm going to walk you through exactly what I did to show you what you can find and what you can then use in the negotiation. So going back to step one, when you dial in the specific Jeep and the specs and trim levels that you want, you're going to take that exact list that you have and you're going to be able to put that into CarEdge.com. You're going to be able to narrow it down specifically to the color of vehicle, the automatic versus manual transmission that you want, if you want a specific Mojave or Rubicon, if you want a hard top versus soft top. Those are all different things you can select to narrow your search focus down to the very specific Jeep that you're looking for. The other thing that you can do is you can set your range that you're willing to travel to go find that Jeep. If you're willing to hop on a flight and drive 4 days back, you can search nationwide. If you only want to be in your local neighborhood because you've got a busy schedule, then you can pare that down to 50 miles. Once you have that, you're able to peruse all the different Jeeps that their site is pulling from in different dealers, and then you're able to actually go all the way to the bottom of the page, click on the dealership link that Jeep is from, and go to that dealership's webpage to see if there's any maybe specific dealership incentives that aren't populating on CarEdge's website. That I thought was super helpful because I would look for those incentives, but I would also find typically what the sticker was from factory. And so you're able to see what factory features came, and this is crucial for any Jeeps that have any aftermarket modifications on them, because you want to know if the previous owner did it themselves or if it came straight from factory with that feature. And so having that sticker available on that dealership's website is, I think, one of the most important things that I looked at when I was looking at my Jeeps. So once you have that Jeep loaded into CarEdge or your search engine and you've found some Jeeps, you can pare them down to the price point that you're looking for. Well, you can pare your search down to the trim that you want, the specs that you input, the colors, all those things. And then you can also pare the price point down. This will help you select from new and used. If you're comfortable buying used, or if you really only want to buy new, you can kind of keep those parameters available. But being able to bring those features into what you want and then meet the criteria of the specs from the Jeep that you put in, that, in my opinion, is the most beneficial thing that CarEdge did for me. I wanted a very specific Jeep when I first bought my Jeep. I wanted a 6-speed, I wanted it to be green, I wanted it to have the LED light package, and it had to have the cold weather group for what we were doing. So I was able to put all that in, and I pared it down to exactly where I was looking at. My price point for my first Jeep was pretty low. I didn't have a ton saved up, so I wanted to find a Jeep that was good quality, low miles, but within my price point. And when I put all of those features into CarEdge, I basically came back with 5 or 6 hits for the entire nation because, again, like I said, I had all these specific things. But thankfully, one of the results was the Jeep I ended up buying. And so that was awesome to be able to find a Jeep that I liked within my price point and had the features that I needed. And it was then now to move on to the negotiation phase based off of running my numbers, my financial goal. And then, of course, I have all of my features met on the Jeep I'm looking to buy. All right, so you found the Jeep that you want. It's in your price point and you're looking to make a move on it. What did I do, or what is the next step? That's moving over into the negotiation phase. There's a lot of different ways you can negotiate with dealers, but I'll just give you what my process was and how it worked for me. And I'll be honest with you, it's worked 2 times now, and I've stayed within my budget and I walked out the door. The reality of negotiating for a car is the dealer will always make money because they have to stay in business. It's just a matter of you making the decision to be okay with the financial outcome that you have when you leave the dealer with that new vehicle. And that's really what it boils down to. And so with my second Jeep, this is the process that I used, which was very similar to the first Jeep that I bought. I made contact with the dealer as soon as I found the Jeep online from CarEdge and it had the specs I was looking for. I asked them what the current status was of the Jeep, and a slurry of text messages, pictures, we just washed it for you, all that came in from the dealer. All the classic stuff that a sales rep will do to try and hook you to that Jeep. Simple things like, it's going to be moving fast here. But all these things started to flow in from the dealer once I made contact. So once you make contact with the dealer, you show them that you're interested and you're getting all this contact back and forth. I find that the next thing that you want to do is just be open and honest about what you want your price point to be. Like I mentioned before, dealerships have to make money. They typically don't make a ton of money off of the vehicle themselves. It's more on the service history and the dealership warranties and those extra features that get added on when you're not aware of what the out the door is. That's really where a dealer makes their money. So I usually am pretty much upfront with what I'm looking at, and I give them my price. I usually try and finagle with them initially to bring them down a little bit, but that never really works with dealers because they want you there. They want to do that back and forth with the manager in person. So what I typically do is I tell them, hey, this is my financial goal. This is what I have. Here is my vehicle. Here is my trade-in valuation for it. If I could get this dollar for it, that could help you get your Jeep sold to me, and you'll get trade-in for my vehicle on this. And that brings it into your financial budget that you established in step 2. And so if that all meets and the dealer is willing to work with you on that, you'll move directly into the last step, which is going for that test drive and making sure the vehicle is what it is and you're happy with it. So being able to give them those numbers, while some folks say don't do that or have different tactics, I won't necessarily disagree with them, but this is the tactic I used and it worked for me both times as my financial budget was satisfied. The dealer sold their Jeep. We both left as happy campers. Sure, could I have pinched out another dollar out of the dealer? Absolutely. But the reality is that's why you set your financial budget in step 2. Make sure you're good with it. Don't compromise on it. And then make the dealer fit into your financial budget. And if that happens, you're happy. And if the dealer is selling their vehicle, they're happy. Let's all go home with a Jeep and be happy. Now that you know what the strategy is that I used to negotiate, here's why I use CarEdge and here's how it helped me. Again, I'm not sponsored by them by any means. I'm just telling you how their subscription helped me. And even if you don't want to use their subscription, just using their auto search tool was super helpful. First off, we talked about knowing what the out the door price was initially. They have a calculator that will help you, based off of the state that you're in, estimate what the out the door price would be. And that out the door price tool is completely free. You can use that without getting an account or subscription service with them on their site. You can also search Jeeps and all the features that you want. There is no fee to use that search engine at all. But here's why I got a subscription and why I recommend you do so when you're serious about looking at purchasing a Jeep Gladiator. So what I did in the last 2 months that I was getting serious about purchasing a vehicle because I had established enough savings for my financial goal was I purchased 2 months worth of subscription from their website. When you pay for that subscription, all of these data points start to unlock when you're looking at a specific Jeep. So a good example is before I was looking at my Jeep Gladiator, I had gone to Nissan because I wanted to buy a Nissan Frontier. One of the data points that CarEdge will unlock is how many days that specific vehicle has been sitting on the dealership's lot. And why that's important is when a sales rep is telling you, man, this thing is priced to sell, we don't really have any more wiggle room, you can then go back to them and go, that's interesting, because if it was priced to sell, why didn't it sell 250 days ago when it's been sitting on your lot that long? And so when I brought that up, the dealer basically was like, we don't have much wiggle room on this. And so you can kind of play into their gimmick and show them that you know that it's a gimmick and you have the data to back that up. And specifically, CarEdge helped me with that a lot, was knowing how long that Jeep was on the lot, how many days it had been sitting there, to also assess from a lot rot standpoint. So if you're going to go in and do that test drive, now you know to look at things that might be indicative of sitting on the lot for a long time. The other thing that the data provides you when you get that subscription is what CarEdge estimates to be the fair price for that vehicle. For me, that was helpful, not knowing anything about Jeeps, what their total values were, what people on the street said they would be worth. You can talk to a lot of coworkers and friends and they'll tell you their Jeep's worth $5 million. But the reality is the market is what it is, and the market dictates what they're worth, and they're pulling from that market. So having that number and knowing that you're close to what it's worth is critical in my opinion, and helped me when I left the dealer with that newly purchased Jeep. Now, like I said, I paid for this subscription, and I did it in the last 2 months where I got real serious about looking at specific Jeeps. You could buy that subscription maybe when you found a specific Jeep that you're looking at and you've already reached out to the dealership and you're doing that sort of back and forth where they're providing you all those pictures and they're trying to hook you to come in and do that test drive. If you're serious about it and you're starting to really hone in on that specific Jeep, maybe that's a good time to buy the subscription. So all that to say, I feel like CarEdge really helped me when I walked into that dealer to have that negotiating power that I had, and then having a solid budget and being within that budget was the second factor that made me comfortable when I provided them that money and that check to buy that vehicle and then get that first finance payment from my vehicle lender. And so we're into the fourth stage here, which is the actual negotiation. Once you've done all of your CarEdge data and you have all of that, you can go and do that in-person approach if it's a local dealer. But like I said before, I highly recommend you do these things virtually, whether that's via text message or email or talking through the phone, because the dealerships are established to hook you when you're physically there in person. They will try every play they have in their playbook to sell you that vehicle when you're on their physical property. So I like doing things from afar and starting that contact via email or via text message to get the ball rolling. I want to foot stomp this in the negotiation phase. You always want to be asking the dealer to be quoting you out the door. And we talked about my specific tactic. I said give them your numbers so that they're aware of what your budget is. And the reality is if the dealer sells their vehicle and you're within budget, you have two happy campers, but one of them has a Jeep and the other doesn't. So really, who's the winner in that case? The other thing I would say in the negotiation phase is just stick with no warranties. If it comes free and the dealer's putting that on you, great. That's no dollars to you. But if they're going to ask you, hey, do you want to do like an extended warranty with us for another $2,000 or $3,000? I typically say no. That might be a tactic you want to employ based off of just having peace of mind. But I specifically want to do all of my own maintenance. I want to keep track of things. I don't necessarily think an extended warranty is the way to go. Like I said before, dealerships don't make a ton of money necessarily on the vehicles that they sell. They make their money in the services and those reoccurring customers that come back for things that they need, like routine maintenance or warranties and extra products and services that they provide folks when people buy new vehicles from them. Another reason I say no warranties or extra services and things like that is because those are things they typically add on top of the out the door price. So when you're looking at a sales sheet, if it's a couple grand out of your price range and you ask for it to be itemized and on there is a $4,000 set of floor mats, well, you could scratch that off really quick and save yourself $4,000 because you can go to Napa and buy the exact same ones for $30. But that's another way you can get that vehicle into the price range if it's completely out of your price range. Look for that itemized sales receipt that they're giving you. And what are they actually selling you for? What price are they selling you it for? And then the last thing in the negotiation phase is once you and the dealership have come to an agreement based off of your numbers, hey, I want to pay $40,000 a vehicle out the door. They've got $40,000 out the door for you. Your finance works, your APR works. You're a happy camper. You're so excited. You're convincing your wife to drive 7 hours to go get this vehicle, but make sure you put in a deposit if you found the Jeep that you want and you're going to be traveling in or you can't get that vehicle today. Put that deposit down so it's not scooped up from underneath you. And finally, we are at the last step of my negotiation process. So this entire time you've done all your research, you've negotiated, you've put a deposit down, but now the reality is what if you show up and it only has 3 wheels and you just completely forgot that there was a 4th wheel and you didn't see it. But when you're doing that test drive and you show up, make sure you're looking over that entire vehicle for everything that you would be worried about. If you had a past Jeep that had specific problems or issues based off of its life, look at this Jeep to see if anything like that mirrors or manifests itself in the indicators on the Jeep. If you're not happy with anything, walk away. If you're not happy with anything, negotiate again with the salesman and tell them how this is going to cost you X amount of dollars to fix it. But the point is get there, put eyes on the vehicle, and make sure it is the vehicle that you imagined it to be and it was advertised as. And if it's not, bring it up to the sales rep, do some more negotiating, get some more dollars off of it, or completely walk away and look at the next Jeep on the list that you had picked out. So with that, folks, I really appreciate you tuning in. This is just my negotiation strategy that I've done twice now for my 2 Jeeps. Both times worked out. I financially was happy with the situation that the dealership provided me with in terms of the overall value of the car, how much I was financing for, what my interest was, and then how much I was ready to put on the down payment. And so for me, depending on whatever your strategy is, whatever your coworker's grandfather's cousin wants to tell you on how to buy a vehicle, this is just what worked for me, and I've done it twice, and I've been happy with it when I left the dealer with the product I got, but also the financial situation and knowing what I signed up for. And so if you liked what I had to say, or if you disagree, put that stuff in the comments. I'd love to hear what your perspectives are and what your experiences were. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you're not a subscriber, love to see you subscribe so you can see more content like this come out. I really appreciate all my current subs. You guys are awesome. So thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you in the next one. See ya!